In a rapidly shifting society, now more than ever, it is essential to stay grounded. Balance is key, but harmony is better. Here, we provide the keys to tap into the divine masculine without sacrificing the divine feminine, because confusion not transmuted becomes confusion transferred.
This is Divine Masculine Activated, a weekly Tuesday evening tap-in brought to you by Mastermind Connect and curated by the good brothers J.D. Weatherspoon and Courtney Grange. We invite you to grab your activation method of choice, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and bring your whole self into this space.
Yo. Good evening.
The fun has arrived.
Peace and love, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Divine Masculine Activated. I am Courtney Grange. He is
That dude over there, aka J.D. Weatherspoon. What's going on, everybody?
Oh man. So without further delay or departure from schedule, we're going to jump right into it for you all today. We have an exciting episode. We cannot wait to bring in our special guest for this evening. But as always, first and foremost, we got to walk these dogs and pay these dues. So welcome to Divine Masculine Activated, where we talk about how you can activate your masculine energy without sacrificing your feminine energy. And why do we do this, JD?
I was going to say, why you ask? Because our nurturing as men has taught us that anything feminine is typically reserved for women. And masculinity is about being hard, forceful, and choosing logic over empathy. Well, logic. We created DMA to unpack what we have been taught about masculinity and reshape how I feel about femininity.
And that brings us to this season in this episode. Well, take it back for a second. So last season, we set the foundation by opening up a conversation about being our sister's keepers. We had a live discussion curated on the importance of platonic intimacy, platonic yet intimate relationships between men and women, and the collection of benefits it provides at a personal, interpersonal, and social level. This season, we wanted to push that envelope a little bit further and create an entire segment composed of multiple episodes that highlight some of the divine feminine archetypes in our lives, what they do and how they benefit us, specifically from the woman persona, right? Because as we always say, masculine and feminine energy doesn't necessarily have to do with the binary coding, but in this case, as we are our sister's keeper, we are focusing on the WHOAmans. That is out here.
Or the women's, however you
the
want.
Women then, right? The beautiful people in which we all come from and stem from. We salute you and we thank you. But this week, this week we have a very, 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 very special guest. Who we got today, JD?
Who do we got? So we got Shelly Bell, who, I think at the most simple level, you can go towards the phrase systems disruptor. That's about as basic as she gets. Basic. She's blazed new ways of thinking in education, politics, financial systems. Then she started computer science too. It's weird.
Yeah.
She scaled definitely over
hundreds of my businesses. She did that Airbnb teepee thing too. That's the first question.
I'm gonna ask her. We're gonna talk about it. But yeah, so anything from working as a K-12 educator, a patent examiner, spoken word artist, computer scientist and nonprofit executive, fashion expert, whatever. Between creating, the first teepee for women on AirBnB, more on that later, launching your business as a single mom of 1, 2, 3 children,
count them,
and building tech platforms for equitable financial capital. Shelly's practice. I don't know if practices is the word. It's more like she lives the mantra, which is to resist being average. Her most recent disruption, which you will hear quite a bit about, is called Black Girl Ventures Foundation, which seeks to transform entrepreneurship by reimagining the way that Black and brown women founders get access to financial and social capital. So without further ado,
ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the illustrious, the incomparable, the incredible, Shelly Bell. Welcome to the party, Shelly. How are you? How are you? How are you? Shelly! We love you, Shelly, we got.
Oh wait, you can even hear.
There you go.
Horn.
Oh, come on, bring it back. Bring it back.
There we go. Hey,
What's going on, Shelly?
what's up? What's up?
How are you feeling this beautiful evening?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm feeling great.
Ta-da. Thank you for coming through and speaking to us. It is a pleasure to have you here. So how we want to kick this thing off, Mr. JD? Good brother.
Let's go. I'm excited to be here. Y'all so laid back. The opening was real sexy. Like today, we're gonna. And I'm like, okay, what I need?
Shelly, we are doing our best to stay in our bodies.
Oh, got it.
It's like, no.
Is that what it is?
Ghetto. We like to be up here in the ether.
This is where we use our low register.
Yes. Good evening.
Okay, I'll make sure I get my.
First and foremost, want to always give shout out and respect to the audience. Thank you all for coming through. We appreciate y'all for joining us. Hello, peace and love to everybody out there. Shelly. So, JD, where we start with this? Are we going business first or are we going someplace else?
We're starting at the beginning. The cool thing about this is it's our show, so there are literally no rules. So we can.
I don't like rules anyway.
Exactly.
So, and I'm an open book, so you can ask me whatever. I mean, rules.
Okay, so let's get into it.
So I got you. Yeah, this systems disruptor thing, right?
There we go.
So I've read it a couple times in your bio, but like knowing you personally, it's like, yeah, that's kind of how our friendship is too. Like she stays disrupting my system. She constantly.
He's just showing you how irrelevant your systems are.
Okay, forget your system.
Let me tell you how like this relationship shows up. Where like I'll post something and people be like, "Yeah, what he said." Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Shall be like, I don't think that's it.
That ain't the one.
Respectfully, but nah. But I say all that to say, so like. Ever since I've known you, Shelly, you're like your relentless commitment to show up as your whole self always is what stood out to me most. It is something that I've admired about you. And so when I hear systems disruptor, like, of course, the first thing that comes to mind for me is like, oh yeah, they got to be talking about the boss fairy herself. Like she's dipped in gold and she is the thing at the end of the rainbow. Makes perfect sense. But when did you first recognize yourself as a systems disruptor? Like, can you remember the first system you actually just like disrupted and it was like, oh, I can do this type of stuff?
Well, one, just like thank y'all so much for having me. And like I really appreciate I just have so much gratitude for just all the kind words. It definitely means a lot to me. So I want to acknowledge that. I would say probably religion. I think when I grew up very free up until like middle school, and my mom started going to church a lot. And then I started feeling like, I went to Pentecostal church. So it was like, I was a girl with the tennis shoes and the long skirt on, you know what I'm saying? And people was picking on me because I had my kids and I had, I was doing that. I was looking like that. But at some point, it was like, this can't be all that God wants. Like God just can't be this small. And so I just was like, I'm not doing this no more. I'm gonna wear pants, I'm gonna wear makeup, I'm gonna put on ear. Like it was very strict. I'm like, I'm just gonna do all the things because God can't be this small. And if God is this small, that's not a God I want to rock with. So nah. And so I would say like I went on a lot of rebellion. And that rebellion started there and it just never ended. So then I started being like, because all the things I was told, like, oh, if you got the Holy Ghost, you can speak in tongues. If you sin, it goes away. Well, mine never went away. So I was like, oh, shoot, they lying. I discovered something. Okay, I can cuss, I can have sex, I can do everything, still speak in tongues. Like what? They tripping. It don't go away. And I think that was like my first almost like nudge, at like where they're telling me truth handlers educating you. are not really, it's not really true, right? So I'm like, okay, well, what else? And, you know, in college, I went on this huge religious study journey too of like, well, let me find the birthplace of Jesus. You know, like I was looking up everything, researching everything, and I found that like whatever you're looking for, you will find it.
That's right.
Period. There's somebody out there.
Again, please? Just repeat it.
Whatever you are looking for, you will find it. And I think, you know, and I want to add context to that around energy. So you might be saying one thing out of your mouth, but you might be energetically acting a different way. So I'll say it again. Whatever you are looking for, you will find it. Right. So that part. Right. And so I'm like, oh, there's truths everywhere that everybody's carrying. And then verifying according to whatever it is that they, the concepts that they find or, you know, pull together or analyze. And so, you know, there it is. I was like, okay, well, there's nothing then. So whatever I do is fine. I'm not going to lose this gift of speaking in tongues. I'm not about to go to anybody's hell. I'm not about like, you wake up way more times than you don't. Right. So I'm going to be alive. I didn't lose my gifts and I'm doing what I want to do. So, okay.
What the problem is. Yep, exactly.
You know, let me just keep on doing that. So I would say, you know, and then that just became, you know, even through like, I had a child when I was 17. I had my first child when I was 17. I was in high school. You know, everybody's like, oh, you're doomed. You know, so I also, you know, another systems disruptor moment, I guess. I also was like, psh, you know, if people who have kids at 17, their kids don't blah, I'm gonna do all the things. Like, you're not gonna tell me that I can't, you know, X, Y, Z, whatever. If their kids are not smart, my kids gonna be smart. If their kids don't graduate from high school, my kids don't graduate from high school. If their kids don't graduate from college, guess what? My son graduated Sunday. So I was always on this, like, I'm not gonna let you tell me and just blanket take that and say that's true. And then I think some of that developed into fight, some of that developed into rebellion. But, you know, we'll continue the conversation. But I mean, like, as I got to certain levels, I actually had to drop that fight.
There you go.
And drop the rebellion, or at least shift it.
Transmute it. I mean, rebellion at its core, it's just a more immature version of innovation. You
know, and rebellion is unsafe. And so this is why, like, when in me raising my children, and people, most people around me were not as radical as I am about it. And they will always want to just like protect the children by not letting them have things. And what I always say is like, you know, me going through that phase that I went through of trying to like defy, you know, the gravity of religion, was really unsafe. I was doing all kinds of things to test my mortality almost, you know what I mean? Like, and I wasn't thinking because I was so focused on like, you know, pushing against the status quo, and that it's unsafe. Rebellion can be, I'll say, unsafe because you're not strategizing.
But that also really quickly also speaks to the covering, right? And we learn about it initially, especially if you were raised Christian, like you learn about this covering and this concept of being covered by God. But I would say that until you start to get older and you look back and you just be like, yo, like them 20 things should not have made it through that the way I did. And now you look at it from a different perspective where it's like you're not just rebelling, but you're starting to like cultivate and put alchemy into that covering, taking you further. Like, all right, let me do more of the right things relevant to me, not to society, but to myself, and see how far I can really take my purpose, my right, you know, the way that I show up to serve the world, and see if I keep being covered. And it's like I keep jumping off these clouds and landing on other clouds, and I keep thinking I'm gonna fall, but I never fall type stuff. You feel me?
Yeah, I mean, they say the Lord looks after babies and fools, and I ain't no baby. So,
I ain't gonna be today, no baby.
You know what I'm saying? Here we go, right? So there we go.
That's it.
So before I get into the next part, let me take a minute to acknowledge who did pop in. Cynthia, Sequoia, Bro, and I think the fact that you have bro in your name just feels real churchy, like a deacon. Candy, always on point. Shout out Candy Paint, Salam, Jay, Camille, the whole squad, man. But
Mom Duke's in here too. Hey, Mom.
Yes.
Hey,
Ma.
You see what it is.
Yeah, get together, man. We're gonna do it.
Being snug over here. That's what's up. What's going on?
That's what you do.
But yeah, so I think taking it a couple notches back, where you mentioned how rebellion is unsafe, and so this is where we're going to put on our teacher hat for those of us who have been avid DMA listeners. So safety primarily falls within the realm of the container space, right? Mm-hmm. There are no boundaries in which that creative energy, femininity, can express itself in an organic way. There's a system to rage against, which, I mean, for under the logic of this series means that there's like a masculine polarity imbalance. One thing that I've noticed about you is you're very much into the not so subtle nuance of doing different shit, but like on schedule and under budget. Like all the time. It's interesting. Like, yeah, I gotta go do this thing with Nike, but like I'm gonna just pop by the house real quick. Skylar, I'm already running late. I got to go. Like,
yo, that's hilarious. That sounds just like me. Yo. That's hilarious.
True. It's so true.
It's like it's interesting. And so like I appreciate that because it shows what your approach is and everything that I've observed you do, whether it be like business, parenting, or even the way that you'll discuss dating, like it screams masculine, feminine balance. If not outright harmony. You sort of fluctuate between those two, which is not to say that you don't have your other moments, but I don't know you like that. So I don't see you.
Well, Courtney knows. I mean, I think, listen though, I mean, what I'll say is the way I look at balance, I was literally just talking about this today on my podcast, is that I don't believe that there's like work over here, life over here. Work is on one side of the scale, life is on one side of the scale, and then we supposed to like add a little work, add a little life. Like that doesn't make sense. That doesn't produce the highest quality of life for me. Because if it's 4 a.m. and I feel like working, I'm gonna work. If it's 7 p.m., if it's noon, I feel like going to sleep, I'm gonna take a nap. But I mean, that's the life I built for myself. You know, so I acknowledge that as well. And that the life that I built for myself has that privilege in it where like if I'm like, it's noon and I don't feel like taking these calls for the rest of the day, I need to take a nap, then that's just what we're going to do. But I just never really looked at it that way. I never really looked at it like, you know, my life has to be over here, my work has to be over here. Honestly, I never had the luxury of looking at it that way. So it's to your point, like about like, oh, I'm about to do this thing with Nike, but I need to run about it. Like literally, I have been a single parent who has had to think of my children every step of the way, but that became so automatic, almost like taking a bath, putting your clothes on, washing your face, brushing your teeth. Like it was just like, boom, you don't need to think about when brushing your teeth or putting your clothes on. Well, I hope nobody does, but some people do. I acknowledge that. But I'm just saying, like, it's so natural that like, wait a minute, is Jay?
Yeah, we had a power outage. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh, look at that. That is the ancestors must know what's up. Look at that.
Come on, let them know we here.
DMA first, ladies and
gentlemen. That's it. Wow. Okay, Shelly Bell to knock the lights out, ladies and gentlemen.
Man, turn it back on. God.
Okay, y'all better stay on if y'all in the comments. Y'all about to learn something.
Listen, it's a day. If you better have your pen and pad ready.
Okay, the energy is here.
Shelly, before we jump, I wanted to stay right there for a second because I know you, there's certain parts of this story that is like, but what we're not going to overlook is the lineage that you come from. And so like all of this stuff in terms of how you are, your ability to disrupt, your ability to like do different shit, that's not just because you showed up this way one day. Like you come from a line of women specifically that did different shit. And so it's a large part of the legacy you carry too, right? Like it's not like a lot of times, and we see this in our communities, especially when we talk about the percentages of us that actually make it past a certain level. There's that unicorn factor, right? Steph Curry is a unicorn. Magic Johnson is a unicorn. Oprah is a unicorn. But we don't talk about, like, there's lineage here too for a lot of us that we are now taking the mantle of and moving it forward. So if you could for a second, tell us a little bit about the lineage of women that you come from.
And then loop that into the teepee story because it's an overlap. I think
because we go in there next. Yep,
that's all I'm gonna say. It's gonna be a 1-2.
Well, I think so this is interesting because I think it kind of goes back to the things you don't know, right? Because I think there was like my grandmother on my dad's side, who I remember of her is just like playing the piano for hours and singing for hours. And as a kid, I'm just running around, me and my cousins playing. And I distinctly distinctly remember that, like her just playing. And what she was doing was she was like working out. You know what I mean? Like she was perspiring, right? She was getting out. She was like really speaking to the ancestors. Like I had no idea, And like when my mom had me, my grandmother on my dad's side, and my aunt came to take care of my mom. When I had my first birthday, I wouldn't leave my grandmother's side. Now that is the ancestor that is with me right now. You know what I mean? But we knew all of that before we got here. You know what I mean? Because like me at 1, I knew that, right? She knew that when she came to take care of my mom. You see what I'm saying? Like this is, something I didn't discover till later on in my life where I'm like, oh my God, like this whole stream of things. So I would just say like there was definitely this just kind of like spiritual brewing of what's happening. Like I learned how to lead from my aunt or my mom's sister, who interestingly enough, right, at 16, you knew you had a job because she was the head manager, like head manager at a McDonald's. So it's like you got a job. You turn 16, come on, let's go. Right. You knew it automatically. And that happened for us. So, and I watched her do everything from run the payroll to make the systems on the floor more efficient, to firing, to hiring, to protecting us, to going off on customers, to like, I watched her wake up at 5, like come get us. We be in there at 5 a.m. cooking biscuits, set up the whole system, lunchtime hit, make it more efficient by putting people in different stations in different ways. I mean, even the level of managing the money down to like, you don't even got to, if you move, you could move faster by not even putting the money in the register because you already know what the change is. Like that's how she would do it. And so, and then eventually, of course, we always would put the money in the register, but I'm just saying that she had developed systems and I watched her do that. Right. And now I built a company where like my son is graduating from college. He's going to come on with us full time. Now he's good at what he's doing for us. So it's not charity, but at the same time, I thought about it the other day, like, yo, my aunt had a job where she went to a level where automatically at 16, you knew you had a job. I built a thing, like I built a company to a level where if anybody in my family graduated from college, you automatically got a job. Like, don't even worry about it. And I mean, I'm not even saying you got to graduate from college for me to hire you, but what I'm saying is like, just to look at that tie, and I had to like step back for a minute and be like, yo, like, I just had to take that in and be like,
it's different.
And that's something that I felt like was historically reserved for white folks.
That part, that should be normal.
Right.
Period. That should be normal.
But I mean, speaking of that, I mean, that masculine feeling, my grandfather said he never worked for white folks, and he didn't, and he kept reinventing himself. So he had a construction company. My dad's dad, he had a construction company, and when times started shifting and the city started hiring black folks because they realized you got these black men building houses with no skill that white people recognize, right? It wasn't like they hadn't been to school, they hadn't been none of that, but it was building houses, and the city recognized it. And they're like, wait a minute, we need to hire these folks. And so they did. When my grandfather's staff started going to work for the city, he said, I'm not working for white people. He never did. He went from doing old construction to installing glass doors. He went from installing glass doors to launching his own church. He has his own church and started traveling the country with a mass choir. Like, he was not about that life of working with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I would say lineage in general.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in you. So for you, and I'm getting the hunch in one direction, but I'm gonna ask anyway so people can hear it. How do you tap in and stay tapped into that frequency of just like sheer badassery, right? Like what is it that keeps you in that zone? Because now you have a lot going on, you can get distracted.
Yeah, I mean, I think well, up until this, like a lot of it was like I gotta make this money. I got to get this money by any means necessary. You know what I'm saying? And to that teepee story, you know, I got laid off twice before. 'Cause I've never been a great employee, but I mean, like, I got laid off for different reasons. I pissed one of my bosses off. He didn't like it. He laid me off. You know, so
it happens.
It does. But I had created a new system for him. He was making money before he laid me off. And after I laid, the system I created for him made him money even after he laid me off. But I would say I got laid off twice. And speaking of, again, you know, masculine, feminine, am I a keeper? You know, I love the title of that because it'd be easy for me to become bitter about like how men support me if I was just that kind of person, right? Because like my fiance, my youngest daughter's dad, he didn't want me to start a business because he didn't feel like it was going to be supportive for our family. I mean, for me, I'm like, look, bro, I raised 2 kids all the way up to this point. You see what I've accomplished. Why would it not be great? At the same time, you know, what I understood was that he was thinking about it from a man's perspective, right? He thinking about it like balance, more black and white, more like this just feels unstable, more like he needed to be sure. And I didn't need to be sure. My level of risk mitigation was different, right? Yeah. Because remember, I'm the person that tested whether or not my speaking in tongues don't go away if I sin, right?
You done already disrupted the system, so you know it can work.
We already in this risky space.
We get it.
You know, everything.
Listen,
everything's
Shelly, you're going to take us all the way off track with these questions, but this is exactly where we're about to go with this. Absolutely.
You know, I mean, this is where, you know, if y'all want to get into that dating piece, is like, I think I'm challenged by the idea of what I can't do or what somebody can't do, period. And so
like the way to get you to do something, I think.
Tell you can't.
I figured that out real quick. Like if I want you to bring me some shit, I'm like, I bet you can't do
it. I bet you can't unscrew that jar of peanut butter
and bring me a
right. Right.
I bet I'll stay better there.
Right, watch. But I think that I so that part is different for me, but it just means it just means dating people who have access to a mindset that can develop and grow, and also just like understanding expansion. And me expanding has nothing to do with you expanding, and knowing that like keeper doesn't mean keep her. Right? Like that it, like I think that
gotta breathe. That needs to breathe. That needs to breathe. Run that one back. They need to feel it.
You know, that keeper doesn't mean keep her, right? So I think that like that and keep her here, keep her in my sight, like keep her in the vision that I have, keep her like that. That isn't what that is, right? Keep her like I got your back. Keep her like I'm gonna keep this house and we go take turns keeping this house.
That's right.
You know, keep
That's
her like
right.
a, you know, so I think that like I hadn't yet expanded my mindset to understand the kind of relationship that I needed. So for me, I leaned more toward tradition in that moment. I said, well, I'm engaged, right? If he's saying that's not what he think I should do, then maybe I shouldn't. And so at first I didn't, because I'm like, I'm about to be a wife. Like, you know, I can't be out here defying everything. You know, like I can't, you know, I defy some things. But you know, I can't defy everything.
Yeah.
So
that's I also do wonder where that code goes, and I'm going off script. We taking it there. From the masculine man's perspective, right? The ability to understand how to create a container that's safe, but it has like a secret exit and entrance way that the feminine can get out of when it needs to. But only the feminine knows how to get in and out, so to speak. And so it's just like, look, I built this for you to keep you safe. You can go out there and do whatever you want, and that's on you. But in here, you will always be safe, and you can trust that. It's a weird thing to think about, because like to your point around keeper, it always makes me think about intimacy. And so we build that into me see. In order for me to feel felt, you gotta feel me, as opposed to I admire and I appreciate you doing what you're supposed to do. And that's how I'm intimate with you. And so that piece of differentiation that comes from, you know, more options, us being in a society where we're closer together, but we're individualized as opposed to communal, right? You talked about your aunt being able to give somebody a job, or your grandfather be able to switch to do windows. He didn't have to move to another state to do that. He was in the same town, in the same place. He might have moved a little bit, but that sense of community sets a very healthy masculine container for us to be creative, intuitive, get it wrong, disrupt systems, all of this stuff. But it's not always something that is known by men. It's not something that we were trained into. So we don't necessarily know how to make it feel comfortable for somebody else, because it damn sure don't feel comfortable for us in the beginning.
Now that's okay. See, now I'm helping you get us further off script, which is
Yep.
we're expanding and liberating simultaneously.
This is a tantric episode.
Yeah,
I like it.
Because let's take it there, because you mentioned
Okay.
that at the end, they're not taught to see it that way, right? And a lot of that is like, I'm thinking about my family and how much untapped genius there is, and simply because what was not taught sort of paled in comparison to what was taught, and what was taught is like, you don't buck certain systems. Like, yeah, fight against the outside world, but like what we set in place for you, you keep these wheels turning.
That's right.
And you have a Coke and a smile while you're doing that shit. And then after you've worked enough and we're satisfied with the output, then you've earned your rest. And you should be content within that paradigm. But like the idea of, oh, okay, so you use your own will, your own intention, your own like vitality to create whatever you can imagine in your mind's eye. And then your hustle is just to make it real. And then when you do that, guess what? If you decide that you want to change your mind, if you don't want to build houses anymore, and you want to go like blow glass and sell bases, cool. Apply that same hustle that you built this other fortress with, and just build something different, as opposed to, nah, that ain't this. It doesn't work on me. So that's naturally, right. I can see how that attitude of putting those limits on other people comes into play. It's like, of course, if you won't let me be free, who let you be free from?
How I look like? Ain't nobody free up in here. We all have to do this way.
But we together.
That's it.
I mean, it's fear.
It's fear.
You know, like it's just basic fear. Like, I've never seen this before. You know, it's funny because like there's an attraction to, I've never seen a woman like you. But then there's a fear around, like, I never seen a woman like you.
How do I
right? So
this?
like,
Ooh,
you
come
know,
on.
so it's like I think I want a woman like you, but I never seen a woman like you. So like, I don't know if I want to, you know, and the woman that I have seen, there's not, you know, nothing wrong with, you know, different frames of different women who do different things. That's fine. The thing is just, you need to know what kind of person you want, just much as I need to know what kind of person I want. And we can experiment. You know, you just got to be honest with yourself when that's gone too far. And I think that's exactly what happened. We both had to be honest with ourselves. They're like, oh, you ain't who I want. You ain't who I want. Even though that's what we thought we wanted. And we were on that path. But like, I'm like, yeah, I would have been so unhappy. Like, imagine me like not starting Black Girl Ventures and like working a freaking regular 9 to 5 all because I'm married. What? Oh, hell no, Slim. I would have been so unhappy. And I think but I want to keep it all the way 100 too. Like, while I'm happier, my quality of life is 10 times better. I mean, I still think about like, well, dang, did I sacrifice, you know, what it meant to be married earlier just because I wanted more out of what I wanted. And then I also have to keep it 100 with myself and say, I wasn't really trying to get married for real. Like, honestly, like I might've been saying like, oh, I want to be in a relationship. I want to get married. I'm going to be keeping it all the way 100. I ain't really want to be in a relationship till literally like last week. Like last week, I was like, you know what, Shelly?
I'm ready.
I'm going to do it for real this time. Like, I'm going to stop playing.
Be a whole ass girlfriend. I'm going to do it.
But that's
right, like, I'm going to do
it. That is the accepted reality that we often find serenity in, because it's real truth. But there is also a lot of melancholy energy that shows up for me when I experience and hear these things and process this for even myself, because it's like, we really shouldn't have to be doing this much freaking work just to be free in ourselves. Like, all we want to do is love and laugh and have orgasms and make money and raise children. It's not that complicated. I don't personally want to do
double click on have orgasms.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I saw something today that was like, really, it was like, look, woman, all I want to do is meditate with you and give you multiple orgasms. And it's like, yeah, that would be a pretty dope life. But like, I got to go pay these bills. And if I don't do this, then somebody's coming to take this from me. Or I was taught my whole life that I have to do this thing. And to JD, your point, you run into that space of like, where you can grow as tall as you want within this structure that we've created for you. Mm-hmm. Don't have no leaves, go over the top. You need to cut those things off. Those aren't supposed to be there. And you're like, but the sun's so bright. It's like, no. Here. And that can be very much golden handcuffs when you get to certain levels of success. Mm-hmm. Because you get to that. I remember the first time I made 6 figures, right? Where I made $100,000. And I remember how like the time period, feeling the depth of the time it took to make that money. And it was like, I don't feel no different than 75,000.
Ain't that okay?
So come to find out, looked up a little bit later, right? Because I was in a business back at that time that focused on human capital management. So knowing how people operated in small businesses was my business. And we would always tell small business owners when they were dealing with difficult salary conversations, your average happiness caps at $82,000.
Facts.
Above that, you're no more happier than you were before. Now, it does have another threshold, but that's well above it. Between 82 and like 150 is the exact same. Yeah. How many career profiles?
I was about to say, I'm gonna have to argue with that one.
It's a difference, right? And that's the point I'm making. That point above when you get to that level of abundance, and it's like, I still got working on this shit though. Like, it don't matter how much I've taken care of in this space. This is still have to get taken care of. This has to get taken care of. These kids, this dynamic of relationship, my desire to be more independent than I am interdependent. All that shit still got to get worked on if you want to go to next levels. Because for us, we can run that game, but it's going to run us to death. It won't run us to life. So back to like the container of this conversation today. Now that you're in that stratosphere, right? You're on levels that, like, I remember when, you know, we was an impact hub in DC. Like, just walking around being thankful to have a space where like the community manager was Black, right? Shout out to Jan. What up, Jan Baker? And it was just a space where we could show up and just do business and figure it out and not have to deal with paying X co-working space this amount of money just because we needed a space. But now you're creating space for others And you're doing it alongside those who have often made space restrictive. So when you're going through these like major brand deals, when you're riding this wave that you're on with all of this stuff that's happening, and you're getting faced with like, this is a dope deal, but are they doing this just because this inclusion and diversity thing is popping? Like, do they really care? Does that matter is my question. Because my mindset has always been use white dollars to make Black empowerment happen. But for you, does it matter?
You know, I would say that I've been extremely lucky to have partners that let me do what I want. I mean, it was just, you know, like, honestly, I'm not, I haven't had to sell my soul for any partnership that we've gotten. And we're working with, you know, Nike, Visa, Kroger, you know, like we're working with like big folks, Goldman Sachs, like we're working with big folks. And, you know, I would say that I've been lucky to not have to worry about that for us. Like the conference, you know why? Because the real MVPs are the people who work at the companies. So a lot of times we think about these companies, we say the company, right? But the real MVPs are the employees we're talking to. And they absolutely care. And they absolutely want their companies to do the right thing. They don't often have a desire to go into entrepreneurship themselves, but they are pressing internally their companies to do the right thing. They are not playing with these companies right now. And I think that that's a number of factors. I think it is the internet evolving to the point where it is now. You know, I think it's tech evolving where we're all more connected and we can see more of each other. I think that it's just caused a societal change that is creating a new type of employee. Point blank, period. Just that. Then I think there is this diversity and inclusion. Then I think there is the murder of George Floyd, right? So like, which then says we need equity more than anything. So I think like there is this, there's a lot happening, but the people who came to us, for the most part, we did get a couple people that's like, oh, we want to give you this and announce tomorrow. Like, you know, we did get those people, but I didn't even think twice about them the same way. I don't know if they thought twice about us after they gave us the money. So I didn't take time to dwell on like, you know, oh, do they care? Do they not care? Because we got more money out of most of them. You know, like, to be honest, a lot of our partners funded us 2 and 3 times over, you know, after that, what I call the white awakening, right? They funded us 2 and 3 times over. It wasn't just like, or we worked. So, okay. Also something to know about me. I'm hella strategic. Okay. So if you give me money, that's not going to be the last time we talk. Oh, that's not gonna be the last time, you know, like that's not gonna be the last time. Yeah. Listen, that's not gonna be the last time your company talks to me.
That's right.
Right? Because the way I move is I work with one part of your company and I just stretch myself out across your whole company. So I get money from all the different departments. I don't just get money from the one batch of people that came to us. And that's just a strategy. This is how I move. So I think, but to your question, does it matter? I think I don't like to be on the fence. I would say that like some days I'm yes, some days I'm no. Some days I'm yes, and the yes comes from it matters if they're puppeteering you, because all money ain't good money. You know, all money ain't the best money to be taken when people want to also dictate what you do. So that's why I say, like, I've been extremely blessed, lucky. Hell, they know because of how I present and how I lead, how I thought lead, that if you come to me, you're better off letting me do what I'm going to do, right? Versus trying to control any of that. So I also say I set the tone of that. And it works. So I spent all this time telling people that what I'm saying works, and now they believe me. Nah, I'm off, right? But the point when I say no is when I have heard other organizations or other people say, we don't want to take no money from white folks. Where do you think you're going to get it from? Because we don't control money.
At all.
At all. Period. Not even the freaking cryptocurrency. So what? If you don't take money from quote unquote white folks, you ain't gonna have no money. So that doesn't make any sense. And money is the tool by which I deliver to my community. It is not necessarily the end all be all point, but it is a tool by which business grows. It's useful. That's what it is. It's a power switch. It's a power line. It's useful. We need it. It is not, it doesn't dictate much else other than how you use it, what you use it for. So yeah, that was a long answer for like.
Not really.
Let it breathe. Let it breathe.
That wasn't that long. So, in that same money vein, but taking it a step deeper, because we've established money is the tool, right? It's not the house, but it makes a damn good hammer and screwdriver.
Okay.
And right?
Listen.
It allows you to acquire all of them, or at least pay somebody else for their time, so you don't have to do it yourself. So, quick quote to set this context. Black Girl Ventures has funded over 130 women of color, held over 30 pitch programs across like 12 cities, which makes y'all definitely national. 200 participants, and y'all generated roughly 10 M's worth of revenue that support like over 3,000 jobs.
That's 10 million, y'all.
That's capital M's.
Capital M's.
Right. So
right, not 10 minutes.
10 millions. But realistically, like, you've created the largest ecosystem builder for Black and brown women founders on the East Coast. Now, what was the original thought or experience that led you to say, I specifically need to be the one who builds this? Like, and at what point did like the rent party and Green Book methodology go into that?
I mean, listen, I wish I had a more like defining moment story for people. It really was just no, because it's so funny. People ask me this all the time, right? But honestly, it was like I had been grinding. So like, after my relationship broke down, I had, I built a teepee in my living room. I do have Native American roots, by the way, and then, after I made that teepee work, it was another one of those rebellion things. So like, I put a teepee up on Airbnb. People wanted to stay in it. It worked. I was like, oh, you can't tell me nothing. Okay, somebody just slept in my living room in a freaking teepee for a week, and I got paid for it.
It paid me money.
You cannot, literally, I don't care what nobody says at that point, right? Yo. And so I was like, this is, I could do this. I could make anything work. And I feel like I had known that, but just wasn't really sure of myself until I took that leap. Actually, I didn't take a leap. I was pushed off the cliff by being laid off and getting disengaged, I guess, from my relationship. And I was like, forget this. I'm going for it. And so, I mean, I would say, that's funny. Dang, he must have heard me. It's literally just got me. But I would say,
gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Yeah, you're talking that mess about
listen, the ancestors is out. The ancestors is out, okay? And they're like, look, we hear you.
Okay.
So after that, I was like, look, I could make anything work. And so I started just, what kind of skills do I have? What do I, and the first thing I did a t-shirt line, one that bombed. It felt nobody bought it. And then I launched Made by a Black Woman, the t-shirt line, and everybody loved it. But the cost-wise, it was going to cost me more to keep having somebody else print it. So I said, I'm going to launch a print shop and a t-shirt line at the same time. And my mom gave me her retirement money, some of her retirement money to launch it. And I used my tax return to buy my own machines. And, started just vending, printing, learning a bunch of stuff, started like relationship building. The relationship building is the key. The relationship building is how I started landing like different deals with my print shop for Amazon and Google. And so I started printing that way, leveled up my business. And so, things had grown. We had made Essence Magazine, holiday gift guide. Like our first year, we had done like Afro punk vending. Like at this point, I had learned so much about doing business, so much about interfacing with customers, so much. So when the news came out, like there was a study released and it said Black women are starting businesses at 6 times the national average, yet receiving less than 1% of venture capital. And I'm like, oh, people need money. Okay, well, I've been doing community building through doing poetry. So that's why I first learned like more of the organizing things. I was like, I had a little bit of a brand in DC because I performed a lot. I was hosting at Bus Boys. I was in the Bus Boys Slam team. And so I'm like, okay, so when I said, let's pull a bunch of people together, I literally, like after the news came out, I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to put this up on meetup.com. We got together. We put money in a hat at the Madison House in DC. We get in the living room. I cooked all the food. We put money in a hat and gave it away. And that was like, what'd you say?
Y'all did a rent party.
That was it. But people liked it. And I like organizing. So I was like, oh, okay, y'all like this? We can do this again. And again, I think natural just business acumen, like going and getting partners, deciding that like, well, I didn't want it to just be Black women talking to Black women. So I needed to shift it so that, because money is green. I need us to get everybody's money. But I knew that the stage had to be reserved for Black and brown women, which were the most underserved and still are. So I created a tagline that said, Black and brown, everyone can attend, but Black and brown women will win. Just to send a signal out to people who saw Black Girl Ventures and felt like they couldn't be there. And so I tell that part of the story because when we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we got to be careful not to create more silos that never integrate.
Yes.
Because it's just a reality that the powers are also not integrated, but in a different way. Right. Mm-hmm. So like if we just keep doing that, we actually don't get anywhere. And it's okay for us to put the people with the most need on a stage or in a place and uplift them and actually engage in what it means to push them forward. So yeah. And then we're on a roll. But the question that you asked me was, when did I know that it was me to do that? When probably like 2018. Now, mind you, I started Black Girl Ventures in 2016. I spent 2017 piloting it. By 2018, I landed on the model, and I started working with Google at that point. And I had gotten frustrated about watching white organizations get capital. And being like, oh, these white organizations, they getting capital and we not raising no capital.
Ideas. Let's be specific.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That wasn't their ideas that was getting it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on? Like, how am I not getting capital? And I was at the woman who's now my makeup artist. She's one of our alumni too. She's my makeup artist and my stylist. And she said, you know what your problem is? First of all, I enjoy anybody that's like, you know what your problem is?
You put it on the pedestal.
Especially when they got to do your hair, your makeup, because you can't mess with them because they still got to get you
right. You gotta let them get you together.
So she was like, you built this looking at your people. And then at some point, you turned around and you started looking at them. And what you got to do is you got to turn back around and look at your people. And that was the moment when I was like, yeah. So anytime, to your earlier question about, maintaining badass frequency, anytime I get off track, anytime I get so like, comparison is the enemy of joy. So like anytime I get to this point where I'm like, oh, but they, whoever the they is, I always remember like, turn around and look at your people. And my people ain't necessarily just Black or white or whatever. Like my people are people who get it, people who want to advance the mission and the cause of BGV. People who want to see a better society and a better world. Like you got to look at your people and keep building. And sometimes that looks like you're walking backward. Mm-hmm. But even if you walking backward, you still moving forward.
Listen, Shelly,
right? So
come here and preach today.
Sankofa in a nutshell.
Come on. It is never taboo to go back and get what was once forgotten.
Talk about
Sankofa energy.
Go fetch it.
I got one before we let you go, because I know you got a busy life and we can't keep you here all evening long. But to that point, you talked about feeling uncomfortable and like getting kind of stuck, right? You said one time that life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. And for me, that reminded me of the many conversations we have had about dropping out of your head and into your body. But one in particular where we were discussing how our head seeks to understand things, right? Like we want to know why this is happening, what's going on here, where our body already knows. And it accepts that we do not need any more information until it's necessary. So it can just go. And I've been doing a lot more studying more recently around this head heart conversation around like which one processes information faster. And all of the studies show that your heart actually processes information faster than your brain, right? The heart knows to do something. That energy that comes from that space is 3 to 4 times faster than the processing power of the human mind, which is now freaking me out because it's like Shelly knew even back then. Okay, yep, all right, cool. We running this race. But specifically now with the way that you're moving in business, the way you're moving in your life, and you even talked about now, you know, about a week ago, you was like, all right, I'm ready to be in a relationship. With all of the growth that you've been experiencing recently, where do you find yourself most challenged to create?
Most challenged to create. Well, I would say, so like, you know, when you talked about like the difference between like leveling up and income, yeah, once my income leveled up a whole nother level, what I started to do is just like put all the like things in place to really create the consistency of environment that produces the best me. Right. So now everything is scheduled. Like my readings are scheduled, you know, my appeasements are scheduled, my my executive like it's like, look, I'm investing in all of myself, which is not just about like professional development from like a learning standpoint. One of my friends or coaches, executive coaches, she does like intuitive business. So she's like, talks to you about how to kind of, this goes back to the body thing that I'm always telling you, right? Like, you know, dropping into your body and how to just navigate throughout decision making in that way. And recently in one of our last sessions, she said, you know what your problem is?
Here we go.
You think that your power is in your doing, but your power is in your thinking. So what I have, so creating space for me to think. And I'll also say that like throughout the course of my life until I got to this level, I also think that my thinking was spoken of in a way that's like, oh Lord, she been thinking. You know, so I'll say to anybody out there who people around you get into like a mode because you're thinking and they know you about to come up with something that they feel like they may not be able to handle. And they may even be saying it jokingly. Like, oh, here he go, here she go, here they go. Like, oh Lord, they about to start doing that, you know, philosophical stuff. They about to start talking that blah, blah, blah. They about to start talking that X mess. They about to hit. Like a lot of that was also like around me in different ways throughout different parts of my life. And so even I downplayed my ability to think and what the results of my thoughts were, because everybody was so they would understand the doing because they could see the result from the doing in the way that their vision worked. Their vision worked in a way where the doing, you know, so I always say like, it just makes sense that you can fathom the doing. There's nothing wrong with how you're reacting. It just makes sense that you can't fathom this part and you can fathom that part. And so I had to get to a point where I remove people from the feelings and be like, and stop being like, oh, X is always acting like, and be like, it makes sense that you don't get it. And that's okay. That makes sense to me. So I found myself the most challenged in creating space for my thinking. And I found myself the most challenged in pushing on other people to create space for my thinking and understanding that that's what I need you to do. And I think like in me being a reflection of them being the challenge, right? Because I was being challenged by creating space for myself. Like, oh, no, I'm good. I'll just do all the things. Now I'm just do all these things. Now I don't need it. It's cool. I got it. I'll take it out. And now I'm like, nah. Like, I need this whole day to just be thinking, right? And yeah, I'm still working through it because I'm so used to doing, and doing meaning if you ain't doing something, you ain't doing nothing. But thinking is still me doing something, and knowing that, like, when I have time to read, forget about it. I'm about to like, yeah, like give me a minute to read. Oh man, you might as well cancel Tuesday. Like, it's cancel Sunday school.
Cancel Christmas. It's a wrap. Like, I'm about to be a whole new gift on this month.
So, but now I'm pushing on that a lot and looking at myself as an elite athlete. And when you're an elite athlete, you have all the people around you that support what you need to work out, right? And nobody thinks that's odd. And so I'm just surrounding myself by the people who do not think it's odd that I need to be free in a certain way.
Okay.
I mean, we can just go on about her way because she can put a cape back on and we can just close this show out. We don't know 60 minutes.
Listen, I don't know where you hid the telephone booth, but you can go right back on in there and turn into Superwoman again. Because like,
it's under the NCANTU.
You've given us everything. But no, Shelly, thank you so much for coming through. This conversation, y'all, was not the conversation we planned, but it was the conversation that was planned for us.
That don't matter.
That conversation that was planned for us. And that's kind of how it goes when Shelly's in the house, right? Things are going to get disrupted. Systems are going to get disrupted.
That includes electrical systems.
That's right. Shelly, before we let you out of here, just give us a quick 1-2. What's going on in your world? What do you want people to know? Where do you want our people to go? How can we support you? How can we get this thing to the next level?
Yeah, man. So I'm working on a few things. I would just say follow me at I am Shelly Bell on everywhere. I am Shelly Bell, Instagram, Twitter. Also, you can follow Black Girl Ventures at Black Girl Ventures on Instagram, at B Girl Ventures on Twitter. If you are looking for funding as a Black or brown woman out there, definitely apply. We're about to open up our fellowship again. It's a 9-month fellowship with a $10K stipend, and we do it across 5 cities at every time. So make sure that you check out the website, join all the lists. I got a lot of good stuff coming. I'm working with Visa, and I'm going to be working with them to distribute grants across 6 cities, actually. And we're starting with DC. And for my top followers on Instagram, I'm going to be doing a surprise and delight sponsored by Visa. Just thanking people for being engaged with the content that we're putting out. And yeah, I mean, we got a lot. I am working with these partners to figure out how I absolutely get money to the community and absolutely get them to use their influence to just bring the greater good into fruition. So yeah, I would say just follow, stay tuned, keep it locked. There's a lot to come.
Cool.
Well,
we done. Shelly, thank you for coming through. We love you. We're going to get about your way. We'll see you soon. Peace.
All right.
Bye, Shelly.
Well, all right. Yeah, man. Yep. We done this thing again.
Look, man, we just play the drums and make the Africa face.
Listen, and we don't never blame the drummer. But now I'm going to say just really quick for the good and welfare, man. Ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all for coming through. As always, please hit one of those like buttons. Subscribe to Mastermind Connect's YouTube page. Follow us. Follow JD. Follow myself so you can get more of this. We'll be back next week. This series, and My Sister's Keeper, is going to continue. We're bringing on some really, really dope young ladies that we have met recently. The Pretty and Petty podcast is going to be a conversation that is a bit more raw and gritty. And so we want to get into all of those lovely nuances of relationships and dating in this new millennial COVID pandemic-y age of all the stuff that we know has been going on. And we want to bring it to the floor for y'all. So follow, all those good accoutrement type things.
And inside the DMA Facebook group, drop things that you would like to discuss on said next transmission. So
That's
we can
it.
make sure to include that in our plan, though be mindful, like as today, sometimes the plan change.
Be shifted. So we're going to go ahead and close out with this gratitude, attitude, and latitude for the day. First and foremost, this gratitude. Thank you to all the mothers. Mother's Day just passed. We had a mother of 3 up on here, Shelly Bell. Thank you again. Mama, I love you. I saw you jumping in the comments. Today is the day that we show gratitude to the mothers. Attitude, JD, you want to take this giant?
Yeah. So, attitude, challenge yourself to drop into your body this week. There's infinitely more wisdom below the neck than there is stuck between your 2 shoulders.
And last but not least, leaving us with a quick quote from the lovely Shelly Bell. Competition only exists to make you better, not to make enemies. We're going back to that relationship building thing that she talked about, y'all. If you are in business, if you are doing anything in these realms of trying to make your own way, relationships are the most important currency. That being said, I think we out of here, good brother.
Hey, man, like we always do right about this time.
Thank y'all for coming through. God bless you and good night.
Peace.
Peace.